Okay, this will be the one to do it. Now, let's get it all in perspective here. This is what I mean by doing too much, right? This is the altercation where a lot of people didn't realize things were being moved into the dark. The NOI had went full speed ahead with trying to structure in the United States. It was no longer a just look at us, we're on our move, we're on the way. The NOI was making big plans. When George W. Bush Sr. was making his presidential run, it was doing a lot of turmoil in the current state of what was happening in Los Angeles. California was the main hotbed for a lot of the news, a lot of the turning factors that was going on with disrest and distrust with African Americans, with the government, the police system, everything from watching Rodney King to the OJ scene that came into play years later. You start seeing this layers of distrust with the police and all these scandals. So Bush became a one-term president, in other words, wise looked at as a failure by the Republican community because they felt you lost to an unknown, a guy named Bill Clinton who ran against him, and he couldn't even believe he lost. It's like, how could I lose to this man? Well, he ran on the fact that we went to a war, and that should have been enough to get him reelected. Not banking on the fact Bill was a good talker. You know, he grabs kids, he loves everybody, but the evil it was right behind him. On his side was just his wife Hillary, and they were spearheading this train. And she knew the only way she was getting in the White House was to get him there. No matter through all his activities, she had to get him there. So she did the best to her abilities to get him there. Now, the problems ensued and became more massive once meetings were starting to take place via phone conversations and actual trips. The nation, the NOI, sorry about that. They had started building a structure because of hip hop. They had the young minds of the rappers that were brought in, some that Farrakhan wanted to stay clear away from. He thought rap was destructive, the lyrics was abrasive, and not what the nation needed to be focused on because rap and that kind of music, those guys, it's going to take a lot to get those guys to conform and they're going to mess up the message and blah, blah, blah. So Khalid Abdul Muhammad decided he would approach the rappers and talk to the rappers and try to reach those. And he's actually had a huge influence on a lot of music and hip hop, including the Death Certificate album, where many people were moving on to the Nation of Islam and joining Islam. And that was their new thing. It was an uproar in the movement in the late 80s and early 90s to be revolutionary, to actually take a stance and do, and it was about action. And the NOI was a major part of that, having Chuck D from Public Enemy as their, basically one of their spokesmen, And as Chuck D was there telling people to follow Farrakhan, are you kidding? That was like huge. And who would think that this is the group that would sell millions of records and had a strong connection with white people? It was unbelievable. The white people love Public Enemy. So they had a very huge following. They had a rock band. They performed with it as well to show they ain't bigoted. And Public Enemy helped the nation with the young people and getting young people to sign up. So the recruitment was there. They even tried to turn their first rapper, Prince Rocking, into a rapper, Muslim rap. Then that didn't work out. Now we're going to get to what a lot of people didn't see in the works while they were building the hip hop and doing these little things underground. Waves was being caused by Khalid Muhammad because he did not stay the course. He felt that they were taking a more divisive way of dealing with what he called the enemy and saying, no, we don't do this. And this is not what I was taught. He was like, that was the thing back in the day. But Farrakhan had a bigger plan. And Khalid Muhammad, in his aggressive approach, it's getting him a lot of attention on C-SPAN, but you're bringing a lot of heat on a lot of Muslims around the world. And you're not even prepared with a plan. And you're speaking for Farrakhan on Farrakhan's behalf, so he had to get him in line, as the government said, look, get that guy in line. So Farrakhan thought he reached him, and in the next interview, he comes right out and double down and go even harder. And once he did that, Farrakhan was on the cover of Time magazine, painted as the enemy. Khalid Muhammad was suspended, ordered not to speak for so many months. He decided to leave the Nation of Islam and form his own unit. Now, as this happened, the Million Man March, or what they call the Savior's Day, was coming. They had the Get on the Bus movement. They had this movement of, we're going to be unified and we're going to come together. Now, the Sunni Muslims had a problem with the Nation of Islam. They didn't accept them as real Muslims. So, when you go into this realm of reality, this happens a lot. Where America was happy this thing was happening, and that these two people, or these two nationalities rather are fighting each other or against each other, and it's going back and forth. This is what they like. This is more like it. Now we getting with it. So when it was all said and done, no one seemed to like the finished product. All this hate was getting them nowhere. So a meeting was held where the Sunni Muslims sat down with the nation. They were able to sit down, come up with a way to make all of this relevant. And you know how that came to be? How they made all this relevant? And what they chose to do to make it relevant, to keep it relevant? They focused on what they had in common, not the things they disagreed upon. So the Sunni Muslims were now unifying with the NOI. So now the NOI and the Sunnis are having these meetings. From these meetings, it's like, we're going to start taking trips. So the minister would take trips and go out to talk to world leaders. That's no thing. This always happens. But Muammar Gaddafi from Libya. This brings up a different meaning here. This was an opportunity. See, Muammar Gaddafi was something they didn't expect. Muammar Gaddafi knew, I need people within. Instead of trying to get people in there, we control the minds and the voting rights. We can control this whole situation. You see, many people didn't see this happening. He knew this was nothing, and it brought headlines and everything to the forefront. It was 7 months, I believe. It was, everybody was like listening to Farrakhan speak, and when he sat down and they laid out this plan that Gaddafi would pledge $1 billion to the NOI to help black people in America, that was like a bomb in the hood, like, because they had one of the civil rights leaders and one of the top money managers in the world, Rex Harris, Marion Harris was known as Rex. He was the guy who does all the facilitating. So the nation, they formally applied for the U.S. Treasury to permit that donation to come through. So this is real. So this is going to get the attention of the federal government and everyone else involved. That Colonel Gaddafi pledged to give Farrakhan $1 billion, and he's going to make good on it. He came to North America and the Middle East and said, I'm going to give you $1 billion. Now, the nation of course, didn't speak to the media, but the grants that they were going to be set up as was to bankroll minority-owned banks so that they can make businesses and home loans and set up charitable foundations and underwrite a nation voter registration drive. Believe me, that's dangerous in this country with the African Americans. They claim we're the minority, but we can control the masses and the market of the majority. If we don't like it, the world won't like it. If we love it, everybody wants to have it. We determine the world We dictate the pace, but we don't know our power. So we sit here defenseless. Now, when this happened, of course, Rex tried to go in and negotiate. And for the NOI, and the federal government said, look, man, banks and other institutions and all of these different things, you know, we got no qualms about the NOI and involvement. And, you know, Rex has said, you know, this is going to bring Black Americans back in America. A lot of this money will help young people build homes and send some of these kids to universities. You know, and the main problem, or the only problem anybody seems to have, is a problem that shouldn't even be there. It's like an illusion. It's like, why are we focused in on this problem when it really isn't a problem? But it's all a matter of control. You see, Clinton's in office now, and this is something he's got to nip in the bud, because if a black man can get 1 million black people to show up on the steps of the White House and make demands, and the president don't come out to meet him, and said, I would love to sit down and talk to you, but as long as it's not with malice, you wouldn't sit down and talk to him. So they brought their demands to the White House. And when Gaddafi said, this is what we're going to do, this made him look bad as a president. Now, you might want to say to yourself, well, why would this be? Why would Gaddafi make such a play? Because he knows if that $1 billion came in from Libya, and they're controlling the elections and the votes and people's rights, those blacks are going to vote for whoever Gaddafi is basically going, or the agenda is for. They're going to be going that way. You're strengthening people to be not dependent on the government. Minorities not dependent on the government means less votes for the government. That's going to lead to a lot of people making decisions they don't have to be strapped to a chair to. Independent thinkers. Now, here's the thing. Libya has been under United States sanctions for restricted travel, money laundering, things of that nature, trades, investments. But the two countries, you know, that were at war with each other, U.S. and Libya, Clinton signed a bill to penalize foreign companies that invest more than $40 million in Libya's oil and gas industries. That pissed off Gaddafi. That pissed him off real good. And oh baby, oh baby, now there's a problem. This is going to get very, very interesting. And I don't think we should get into the rest of it unless we're on the Patreon. Because I don't know how, you know, I had to talk to a lawyer. Seriously, I got to talk to the lawyer about what's going to come next. So I'm glad you're liking it right now, but we're going to probably have to do this on the Patreon. Can't do this here. So we'll end this here, and then we'll just finish this on the Patreon. Because, yeah, the rest is, I'm going to need a lawyer. Probably, to see if this is okay, or how I'm going to word this. But, yeah, let's do that. Anyway, thank you for hitting the like button. I appreciate that. Most of you did it without me having to ask you, which is even a greater blessing. My Cash App is Carceno for Life. It'll show Carceno for Life up there, and it'll have a dollar sign and Carceno on it. Okay, so that's all you need to know. I'm out. Love, peace, and hair grease.